Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second session of Smashing It. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Rosaleen McDonagh. She's an activist, travel activist, a disabled person who's involved in activism going back many, many years, an author and a playwright. And we're delighted to be joining conversation with Christian O'Reilly. Christian's going to act as special guest MC. Many of you know Christian as a playwright. The play No Magic Pill. If Rosaleen and Christian are feeling up for it, we'll invite some question and answers if that's okay. So without much more from me, thankfully enough, I'm going to pass it over to Christian, who's going to get things rolling. And I hope everyone enjoys it so much.
So we'll kick off. So I was saying it's a privilege to be chatting to Rosaleen. So Rosaleen, I'm going to ask a very open-ended question first, and then maybe lots of questions within it. But I want to ask you, can you tell me about your journey to becoming a writer?
Oh my God, I don't think I've reached its destination.
Okay.
I think it's an ever-evolving process. I tried to abandon it many, many times, as I'm sure you've done it.
Yeah.
And there was a moment I really thought it wouldn't happen, that I would be not really understand what I'm doing or why I'm doing it.
Mm.
I did have a regular job. I had a regular life. But Ursula, my friend Ursula Haggerty, whom you wrote about, she died when I turned 40. And it was a real kind of shock.
Rosaleen, you were talking about Ursula and when she died and the impact it had on you.
Yeah, I suppose for me that was a watershed moment in terms of my life, where I was going, my career, and how valuable time is, and how quick it slips away. And soon after Ursula died, I kind of took my writing a bit more serious. And I went off and did an MA in Trinity in creative writing. And then the recession happened. I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to get work. I'll never make a living. And slowly, but like you, Christian, I would imagine it's an ever-evolving process.
Yeah, and I think it could take a certain amount of confidence to even call yourself a writer. I know that feeling. But just to kind of wind back, Rosaleen, like as a child, was it did it seem a possibility for you to write, or what sort of obstacles did you face in those days in terms of having the opportunity to express yourself?
Okay, I don't want to do a pity party, so let's kind of gloss over that. What I would say is, as a younger woman, when I heard about Christy Brown, and one of the first plays I ever saw was Under the Clock by Christopher Nolan. And all these sort of creative CP men, they did give me a kind of a something to imagine. You know, I always call them Davrin, Christy, and Christopher, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Okay.
Because I was still, they would be my reference in terms of what they done and in the time they've done it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It kind of, I guess that they sort of gave you almost permission to have a go yourself, that sort of thing.
But I knew they were disabled writers. I mean, I knew, and I'd seen Mary Duffy's work, and I'd seen her perform in the project, and that was inspiring. But I'd never seen anyone that had my impairment, that had no speech, or that was non-verbal or half-verbal, and yeah, that was, they gave me hope, if that makes sense. I hope is a kind of a mediocre word or overused, but I always feel they're with me. Christy, Christopher, and Davern.
And so it was, so in terms of as an artist, it was writing was the form that you kind of responded to, as opposed to visual art or something else.
Well, I did want to be a set designer.
A set designer?
Yeah, that was my calling. And I'd been involved in activism, but I was crap at it, really bad. And I really admire people that do it. I couldn't, I found it tiring, emotionally draining, very aggressive, very adversarial, very competitive, ego. And I know we feel that as writers as well, but I think when I was able to let the activism or the movement kind of move back from the front line and maybe offer something alternative, also, just I would have struggled with my identity as a traveler and where that outside of my family, where that would have, how that would play out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I mean, do you think that, because in a way what you're describing about activism is kind of like, I suppose there's different kinds, and there's the kind of the conventional kind of on the street protest type of angry militant lobbying, but maybe there's different forms, and perhaps through your writing, you know, that's a different, you mentioned the word alternative, that's like a different form of activism, isn't it, through your art form, through your writing?
I don't know, I think we're living in a paradigm of activism, and it may be overused. I love the militant, I love the front line, I love the watching my comrades, but not everybody can do that over a long period of their life. I mean, I could, and also emotionally, and as disabled people, we're told you can't be vulnerable, you always have to have the answer, you always have to be a bit like Martin, the Messiah, the leader, you know, the one with all the answers.
What's that like? I mean, like, you have that, I guess you have that as a disabled person, and presumably as a traveler as well. Do you feel that pressure?
Well, I don't collude with it.
Mm.
I mean, I write for myself. And I mean, yeah, I don't collude with it. I would have colluded with it as a younger person because I didn't know what else to do.
Mm.
Now I'm quite contented and comfortable to kind of, be wrong and make a fool of myself and struggle with editing and be more private.
When you say you don't collude with it, like in terms of finding your voice as a writer and just discovering that you want to write for yourself, like did that kind of come to you immediately or automatically, instinctively, or was there a process of kind of finding that voice? Was there a process of trying to write about the things you felt you should write about and then discovering the things you just wanted to write about?
Okay, well, in answering this, I want to remind you this was supposed to be a two-way conversation. So I'm going to turn it back on you in a moment. But I would say, and maybe it's the wrong thing to admit, but I struggle with writing about impairment, writing about gender, writing about identity. I struggle with that, particularly impairment. I think I've made a bang of it. You know, I look at Jack Crone, I look at other writers, and they seem to be able to nail it. But I suppose there's no blueprint for how you do it, but I struggle with it. Now, you answer your own question.
In terms of finding my voice as a writer,
Yeah.
I mean, like until I was 17, I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I was a
What team?
Well, actually Chelsea, because I was brought up in London, and that was the team locally. But then I became a Man United fan subsequently, and I like we moved to Listowel when I was about 8. My dad had left us when I was 5, so my mother was on her own in London with 3 kids, and we moved over. And I was an English kid in an Irish town in the 1970s, and when I realized soccer wasn't realistic because I just wasn't very good, I thought about sports writing and soccer journalism, and decided to do journalism in college, or rather, I had an eye on that and then did communications. And I remember attempting a few freelance articles, and I just wasn't excited by it somehow. And then we for a college exercise, we had to write a short story, and I got such a kick out of that I realized that I wanted to make stuff up as a writer. But for years I was kind of trying too hard. I was trying to force it. I was trying to show off. And it was really, I wrote some staggeringly bad stories and scripts, really atrocious. And my sister Kira, there's two people gave me key advice. My sister Kira, who's a visual artist, she said to me, put your passions into your work. And secondly, being brought up in Listowel, John B. Keane was someone who was a mentor to whom I used to go to for advice. And he encouraged me to write from the heart, is what he said. And with that combination of advice, persuaded me to write a script about a guy in his 30s who gets a second opportunity to become a soccer player, when his son, who's 13, turns down the opportunity for a trial. And it's the first time that I felt I was writing something where I just needed to write it. And I felt I knew what I was writing about and needed to write it. It felt very heartfelt. And that was probably the beginning of that sort of discovery. And then I think from then on, you respond to things that feel personal. You want to write. And then when you care about something, you just can't let it go. You have to, like No Magic Pill was 27 years in the making because I couldn't let it go.
I remember, we know each other a long time. I remember talking to you years ago, Christian, about the Irish film Clash of the Ash.
Oh yeah.
You remember we talked about that? It was
Yeah.
about a young fella from Cork, and he wanted to get out of Ireland, but he was a hurling player.
Mm,
I can't remember in detail, but I have to say, one of my favourite pieces of work you've done was The Good Father.
okay.
That's probably my favourite. I mean, I know nobody can is a story that needed to be told, and you've done that.
Mm,
But no magic pill will always have, a special place in my heart. And there was a film, do you remember? I went to a film and there was a woman with a red hat on a boat. What was that?
a red hat on a boat.
Yeah, one of your shorts. It was,
Oh, it was called The Birthday.
am I right?
Yeah, that's right. The Birthday. Yeah, her son takes her across on tractor to the mainland from an island where they live
I
for
love
her
that.
birthday.
That stayed with me.
And then the tractor breaks down when the tide is out, and then the tide starts coming back in again. Yeah, that's mad. I saw your play because I'm going to go back to you now because you can't be directing all this to me. Your play, I've got it right here actually. Where is it? Yeah, I'll just hold it up. Walls and Windows, which I saw. I saw the Abbey production on my laptop. I think it was during COVID, and I thought it was extraordinary. I mean, amazing, really beautiful. And I'm struck that you're talking about your uncertainty, writing about impairment, but your traveler identity is something that you write about and the world of the traveler community is something you write about with such authority and authenticity and so brilliantly. Do you find that comes more easily to you, or how do you?
Yeah, but the thing is, I've always written about impairment.
Mm,
But the directors or whoever may decide to leave that word out. There was a boy in Walls and Windows with a wheelchair user,
mm.
and Julia, the main protagonist, was a woman with an impairment. That's how I wrote her. I don't know whether anybody else saw that or felt that. She was written as a woman with impairment. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be telling you a lie. I think I'm probably afraid of my own impairment, and the drama thing is much easier in some ways because it's family,
Mm.
it's community. I've never felt entirely Donna and Mary and Martin were my friends, but I never really felt I was in the thick of disability politics. I always felt on the outside, or that my experience as a disabled woman was somehow unusual, or when I write about violence or abuse, that somehow I was left this side down. Does that make sense?
Well, can you, when you say letting the side down, how might that be? Uh,
I'm not sure, but again, I mean, with activism, it's about polemics.
mm,
I mean, the right rhetoric. And I felt I was too soft, not strong enough, not cold enough, not together enough. I don't know, but I felt very different in traveler politics.
Okay.
But that was a journey as well.
Okay. And what kind of a journey was that? I mean,
it wrecked me. It really wrecked. And I ended up in hospital. But it was a well worthwhile journey. It was, I'm sorry, Christian. I'm not trying to be evasive. I don't.
you're not. No, Rosalie, you're not being at all evasive. You're being really like. You're not being evasive. Yeah.
All these things are visceral, aren't they? They're all felt and experienced rather than an abstract, cynical, academic, contrived answer.
I mean, and I suppose especially like to write about the traveler community, your the sense of responsibility. There's your family, there's friends, there's probably fear of what if I get this wrong? How will they feel about the work? Will I betray them? Are all those concerns that?
Oh
play?
yeah, but you have to. Say, look, we have to start somewhere. I'm now working with a new generation of traveler women and men who are involved in theatre and film. And we've kind of let go of that internalized shame. And I think it's, what did Beckett say? Fail again, and do it beautifully. Well, I kind of think, well, I've done that and I will probably continue to do it.
Yeah, and what you described there, internalized shame, is that there's been a process of letting go of that. And does the new generation of traveler artists and writers, do they have that? Do they have that baggage, for want of a better word, or are they able to move beyond that? And do they look to you as someone who, I'm sure you're a role model for them?
I hope they don't look at me, but I was thinking, I saw No Magic Pills twice. I was thinking of your actors, not the characters, your actors, particularly Soraka and Berna, who are under 30. I imagine. I was thinking that they don't seem to have been marked by the same shame as my generation. I would see that with travelers as well. That shame, I suppose, is connected to the wider Irish identity stuff. Our parents' generation were shamed about sex, about gender, about impairment, about ethnicity, and that really held them back in so many ways. But I think the young ones, they're amazing. I mean, you saw it. You saw Soraka and Freddie, you saw what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and it's quite a thing to overcome shame. That's a difficult process to overcome it. And how?
Well, it's a bit like undressing yourself, or being undressed, and trying to pull everything off, and see who you really are, and
Mm.
I don't know.
And I mean, maybe this is a stupid question, but do you think is the way to overcome shame to talk about it? Is that the only way to talk about the things you're ashamed of? Is that, or to write about them? Is that the journey through it?
I would never be so arrogant as to suggest how other people do it.
Mm.
Because I think it's a very personalized, contextualized journey.
Mm.
And also, it's only very recently, Christian, you will know this better than I will. It's only very recently we've found a vocabulary that links impairment with shame. It was always there, and we were almost encased by it, but we didn't all know how to talk about it. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it does. And I, you know, in terms of your own writing, in terms of the importance, you know, of that for you, like, was there a moment? I'm just kind of curious about was there a moment in your childhood, in your teenage years, or in your 20s where you felt that you made that decision that you were going to write? You talked about Ursula earlier as a point when you were 40. Was there an earlier moment in your life where you felt that urge to express yourself?
Again, I go back to No Magic Pill, and I was really interested. The character of Dermot,
Mm.
the whole speech impediment, and the hierarchy of disability. When I was involved, it was very male. It was very, not so much super quip, because I now realize that's almost an insulting term as well.
Mm.
But I suppose there was no room for people with speech impairment. I mean, and Donna, I suppose, me and him were on the other side, and me on the other side allows you to go under the radar, do what you need to do. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, we weren't in the center, we were on the other side, or the outside, and I was a loner, and I wasn't very cool. I don't know. I can't pinpoint it.
And was it okay to be on the outside, or how did that feel? Was it a lonely place, or was it a nice place to be?
Once I had Donna, I didn't. It wasn't lonely anymore. And the thing about it was, Donna was in the center where he'd feed back information, and we tried together, and we'd perform, and we'd take the piss out of people in the movement. And I suppose him being gay and me being a traveler in the 80s, people with impairment, we weren't considered, you didn't even have a gender. I mean, you had a gender, but it wasn't acknowledged. So his journey and my journey, no, I think once I met him, I no longer felt on the outside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah. Damien just sent me a message to say that we've been talking for half an hour now. Just so you know, are you okay to keep going?
Yeah, and if people want to add or join in or they're not bored.
Yeah, exactly. If people want to ask any questions or what have you, brilliant. Yeah.
You are to me.
What's that?
You are to me.
Yes, exactly. But what you're saying about being an outsider as well there, and like in a way to be a writer, maybe you need to be a bit of an outsider, do you think? Does it help?
I think that's overplayed.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a cliche.
It's a bit of a cliche, yeah.
Oh, yes, that. I mean, if you're an outsider, how do you get?
Mm,
How do you spark your imagination? I mean, you have to meet people, you have to,
mm.
quench the thirst.
You mentioned shame earlier, and this is quite a trivial story about that, but I'll just tell it briefly if it's okay. Years ago, I did a training course called the Writers Academy with the BBC, and it trained me to write for their shows Casualty, Holby City, EastEnders, and Doctors. And after doing the training for the next year, then you write an episode of each of the shows. And I remember, like, I was playing with a local soccer team in Galway, and like none of the lads had seen any of my plays or heard of them or any of the work I'd done. They weren't that interested in Casualty or Holby City or Doctors, but they were big into EastEnders. And I remember when I told them when I was going to be writing for EastEnders, it was like, yeah, that's great, cool. You know, tell us when your episode is on and so forth. And I remember I was writing the episode, and I've been working on the medical shows, Holby and Casualty, and it had been really tough going. The medical research was really, really hard going, and I just about survived them. And then I was writing EastEnders, and I was thinking this is going to be much more enjoyable. And I had written my second draft of my episode, and I got a call from the series producer, and she said, "Hi, Christian, your episode, I'm afraid it's not far enough along, so we're going to put another writer on it." And I was there, "What do you mean? You mean I'm?" And she says, "We're replacing you." And I said, well, what are the notes? Give me the notes. I'll turn it around. And this was on a Monday, by the way. And she said to me, "We started the other writer 2 days ago." And I said, "But I didn't deliver the script on Friday." And she said, "Yes, I know." And I was really kind of a bit devastated because, you know, it was the show everyone had heard of. And it had a really kind of curious effect on me. I felt really I felt really ashamed of this failure because I'd been so public about it. I told my neighbors, I told my the guys I played soccer with, and I didn't want to talk about it to anybody because of that. And then I became very alarmed, and I kind of realized I realized that I needed to talk about it. And I needed to tell people, because otherwise it was going to be really corrosive. I could feel it kind of becoming corrosive. And I remember we had a night out with the soccer team in a local pub, in the club's local. And I met a couple of the lads, and they said to me, "So how's EastEnders going?" And this was the moment, like, and I just said to them, "Well, lads, to be honest, I've been taken off the episode. And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've been fired from EastEnders." And there was a pause, and I kind of thought, right. And then one of the lads said, "Well, do you know what? It's only a load of depressing old shite anyway." And it totally punctured all this anxiety I had, and this sense of, it totally punctured it, and it kind of liberated me from a sense of acute failure. And I continue to talk about it, and I tell this story because there's something quite healing about the telling of that story, and the kind of release of that kind of feeling. And I suppose what I asked you earlier about how you deal with shame by expressing or talking about it, that was one of the things I suppose I was thinking of.
Can I tell you one of my big moments of shame as a woman?
Sure.
You were there, and I hope I don't embarrass you.
Mm.
It was the early days of CIN
Mm.
in Bolton Street. And Martin offered me some sort of job. I don't know what it was. But I went in anyway, and I had a really heavy period. Do you remember?
I don't know if I remember you being upset about something, what I probably thought was something else, in fact.
I remember I vomited, and I was probably hemorrhaging really bad. But I remember you got me into a taxi, and you were telling the driver where I lived. And it was the middle of the day, and just go with her. You won't know what she's saying. And you got into the taxi. I was in my wheelchair, and you had summer shirt and trousers, and I vomited all over you. You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that, but I should.
And it was more so. At that time, we didn't talk about periods in public.
Mm.
And you must have known. And it was a very hard time, but I just remember the next time I saw him being really, really ashamed.
Okay.
And you saw me, and you must have saw the blood, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so ashamed of myself. And you saw everything, but now I know you didn't. There's something else I wanted to ask you.
Mm.
It's tied up with identity, and it's tied up with nomadic hills. And maybe we could work through this.
Mm.
I suppose. How can I put? Yeah, for years and years, settled people wrote traveler characters.
Mm.
Unsettled people played traveler characters. And similarly with disabled people. I mean, you know all this about whipping up. And I would be very, all the usual about nobody owns a story, but we all own our own body, and we all own our own experience. And recently, I mean, do you remember a rap band, NWA?
Mm. Mm.
And they were terribly misogynistic and anti-Semitic, and yet they were black, and they were kind of horrible to other oppressed groups. But at the same time, I remember the lead man in the band talked about in Harlem. Nobody is ever black enough to tell the authentic black story.
Mm.
And that no story belongs I suppose I want to tease it out with you. I'm very honest. I can't write impairment. I struggle with it. And yet you did it. You're not impaired, as far as I know. Maybe you're a closet. I don't know. What would you tell me about that? First of all, is it a conflict for you? Second of all, and please don't say, oh, we had disabled actors and I had a disabled dramaturg. I know that. I want to go a bit deeper. Tell me about that. And where are you with all this?
In terms of did I feel comfortable doing it, or
were you worried that you would be criticized? And
yeah,
is there a conflict in you? Is there a tension around all that?
yeah. I mean, I think I was certainly worried about being criticized. I was worried about a lot of things. I was worried about how Martin's family would react to the play, and I was worried as a non-disabled man writing about this, and I think I probably gave myself permission because I've been trying to tell the story for so long. But in saying that, I've written other disability-themed stories in which I haven't been trying to tell the story for so long, and I suppose I think I feel a sense of conflict because I feel an urge to write certain stories, but also I question whether I have a right to, and then I tend to do it anyway, which probably merits criticism in itself. But I also think, like in the case of Sanctuary and No Magic Pill, I think I've done it well. I'm really proud of both of those pieces, and I think for whatever reason I was just able to let go of that anxiety and just do it. And also, like, this is going to sound like it's daft, but let me tell you this. Years ago, I remember walking down the street with John B. Keane, and I asked him how he started as a playwright, and he said to me, and how he ended up writing his first play, Sive, and he said to me he'd just been to a play, someone else's play, and he sat in the audience and he said to himself, I could do better than that. I'm going to write a play. So the way I give myself permission, and this will probably sound ridiculous, but one of the ways I give myself permission is I say to myself, I'm going to write my play, and I'm going to kind of hope that there's someone in the audience who sees it and thinks to themselves, I could do better than that. I could do better than that Christian O'Reilly guy. And then, as a consequence of my decision to write a play, they feel empowered to write a much better play than I have. Insofar as, by that logic, I take away all the anxiety and hope that, and I'm not joking when I say that. I kind of feel like, well, if someone sees No Magic Pill and says, yeah, but I really can do better than that, or I can write a much more interesting play than that about, and they're a wheelchair user, then that's kind of a good thing. I don't know if that's an abdication or of responsibility.
What I would add, if I can put words in your mouth, first of all, as writers, we're collaborators, we're actors, and I'm heavily reliant on actors. No, I mean,
yeah,
you know yourself, it's no good on the page unless it's on the stage. And for me, when I thought about your work, I mean, I was conflicted, and he's a friend of mine, and da-di-da-di-da, you know, unusual. But I think for me, you provided work that wasn't readily available for actors with impairment.
Mm,
That's one step, one point. And
mm,
the other thing I would say is there's room for all of us.
mm.
No, there's room. You're not the only one that writes about impairment.
Yeah, yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
That there's a room for all kinds of plays, scenarios, experiences. So I kind of yeah, it took me a while to process my friendship with you and
Mm.
how do you work all this stuff out?
I'll admit I was worried. I was worried about how you would react to No Magic Pill. I was kind of thinking, oh my God, Rosaleen could really hate this, and I was quite scared. But
But
you
I
kind of,
also think you forget that the people that you were writing about were my friends.
yeah,
No, I was in a very bizarre space.
mm,
You know, I mean, it wasn't, and it was a piece of my life. Just, I mean, like,
yeah.
your writing was probably, no offense, secondary the experience of being in the auditorium. Does that make sense?
It doesn't just make sense. It's something I've heard from other people who've seen it, and other people who would have been very close to Martin and who would have lived through it, and they had a very different experience to people who were encountering that story for the first time. So yeah, it that makes complete sense.
And
Um,
also, I admire your courage and in terms of being able to kind of work this out between us. And I'm trying to figure out what it meant, you know, and yeah, it's a very complicated um, process. And I'm sure I'd see it again and I'd have a different take on, you know.
but you said something earlier as well about failure, and I'm a little bit in love with the idea of failure,
Yeah,
and that Beckett expression, fail better. Um, I think there's worse things than trying something that failed spectacularly, because at least you had a go, and also I find it's funny when I give talks about writing to students the odd time. I find that the stories about things that go well aren't that interesting, but the stories about things like EastEnders. I've also been fired from Fair City, by the way, and it's just great fun to talk about things that where you failed, because I think certainly my experience has been that I failed at far more things than I've tried, and as a writer, I've got so many more unproduced scripts than I have produced ones, and but there's some comfort in the fact of still being. And another thing John B. Keane said to me years ago was just keep at it, just persevere. Um, which I'm sure is something that, yeah, actually something that reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about. You're now a member of Astana, which is very, very cool. And you talked about the responsibility you feel because of that, and that you work really, really hard, because of that honor that's been bestowed on you. And
before I answer, will you check with everyone? We're nearly 8 o'clock. I'm happy to go on and answer, but just check that everyone is still with us.
Good point. Damien, I know you're there somewhere. What do you think? And as our audience,
I love the way you're up there somewhere. Thanks, Christian. No, I think absolutely people are engaged. I'd imagine most people like myself are enthralled by this. It's just wonderful. It's so natural. So yeah, everyone's saying if you're willing to keep going, we'll absolutely stay in for a few more minutes. But I'm conscious of your time and energy as well, from both you and Rosaleen.
Yeah, well, I'm okay. Rosaleen, how are you?
I'm okay. I think we're getting somewhere, aren't we?
Yeah.
I know I am. I'll just tell you about sauna first.
Mm.
I had no idea. I had no idea about sauna. And it was around the time Donald was dying. And I know Donald died on Monday. And Mary Duffy was in Vincent's with him that morning. Maybe I got the day wrong. I don't think I did. But he was being buried later on in the week. And within hours, his burial mass was around 12.
Mm.
And forgive me if the times are wrong. And I still, my memory around that period is still not very clear. But the same day that Donald was buried, within 4 hours, I got the message saying that I was elected first time to a sauna. And I always feel it was Donald's part. If he was a writer and performer, but he never, I don't think he got the recognition or the opportunity. But I remember thinking that night, very sad, I drove back from Mayo, from Minneapolis, and I got this message, and it was a gift from him. There was also something about, I worry about this question, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're working out. At the moment, there's a lot of equality, diversity initiatives, particularly in the arts. And sometimes you wonder whether you're being a token or whether
I think, sorry, Rosaleen, you froze for a minute there. You just started saying you wonder if you're being a token, or what were you going to say? Sorry.
Whether your work merits.
Okay.
No, I don't like the word merit or the concept of merit. But I mean, yeah, there's equality, diversity, and inclusion. And there's a lot of money, for travelers, for people in direct provision, and the arts, particularly. And it's worrying because I'm not sure it's sustainable, but I also think it's a kind of a trick in response to internalized oppression. And what I mean by that is we're so used to having nothing, having to fight, having to fight for that audition or that access route into wherever, that when there's a door open, you're almost afraid that they're going to shut the door before you're able to get in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It's almost like it's quite hard to trust that door.
And and also just that if there is another recession, our lives as people with impairments, are we the low-hanging fruit where art and creativity will be seen in terms of not important over and above food or job or accommodation. You know what I mean?
And is that always an anxiety that, and does that motivate you to work as hard as you can in that uncertainty of you don't know what's going to happen next economically or what have you?
Well, to be honest, first of all, I'm probably dangerous workaholic. I live alone, no children, so therefore everything I do is about my work, which is kind of dangerous, and also there's a bit of we spoke earlier about shame. But the other side of shame is guilt. I feel very guilty. Other travelers, other disabled people haven't had the opportunity that I've had. So it's not always a comfortable space. Does that make sense? Or an enjoyable space. Does that make sense?
It does. You talked earlier about your the new generation of traveler artists and writers, and I mean, you don't come across as an artist who's self-obsessed and just determined to do your own thing. You come across as someone who has an instinct to mentor or support.
Well, again, first of all, I call them my babies. They're surrogate children. When I get them, they're already reared. But I mean, like, I work with the very best, and I learn from them. They tell me, Ronaldo, you don't know what to do, or the rules have changed. That's very healthy, intergenerational kind of dialogue, but also having your pulse checked. 20-year-olds can be American, but also, Christian, I'm lucky in terms of I'm not really involved in disability politics, but I'm lucky in that 4 young women, Amy, Tina, Maria, there's someone else, and they're all in their 20s, and they're doing their PhDs, and they're doing science and all sorts of amazing stuff. And I'm so lucky I get a chance to go out to dinner with them, to spend time with them, to be able to say, I remember recently when Lizzo used the word spa. I can say that word because I am one of them. But I remember texting and being involved in a dialogue with these 20-something clips. And I was saying, girls, you have to tell me, what does it mean? Who is Lizzo? Tell me the context. And that's a very beautiful, lucky experience, because you find they become not only my surrogate children, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but they become the link in terms of culture, in terms of where disability politics are at, where feminism is at, and it's a privilege for me to listen to them talking.
And Rosen, what There was a couple of things I wanted to ask you that Nina had drawn my attention to, and one of them was what motivates you, what makes you strive to keep going, and the second one, which I think is another brilliant question, is what are your hopes for the future? I want to ask you those things. What makes you strive to keep going, and what are your hopes for the future?
Utopia. Which I don't. You, my friend, you died in March. Quite suddenly, he wasn't ill, and all that, and I've probably buried my whole peer group of disabled friends. So I don't think I'm in a space at this very moment to think about future. I'm fine. I mean, I talked to you on Saturday or Friday by phone, we text, and I have said to you, I find every day waking up very difficult. All those 12 or 14 hours to feel with. But what I do know is all these moments, they will pass. I imagine, and I hope they will make me a better person by way of sensitivity towards others. But also it might, it's a very dark, the dark corner, so I'm not sure I see the future other than what I have to do tomorrow morning. And in terms of keep going, I was thinking about that the other day, and in the last year, it's been emotionally, psychologically very challenging in terms of people dying, my own mortality, and the political climate that we live in, my role as a human rights commissioner, am I doing enough? All that stuff. I must keep going. There's always another book to read. There's always another band, a new piece of music, a new play, I mean, I have no other than that. I have no other answer than that, other than, there's always another book. What keeps you going? I mean, your adrenaline is high at the moment after pneumatic bill. Jesus, you got 4 stars in the Irish Times. They fucking slaughtered me. They slaughtered me.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, then they're full of shite.
Well, no, I think it's the settled traveler thing, I would imagine. Anyway, what keeps you going? Your children?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose the need to provide for my family is drives me to try and make a living from writing, and it drives me very hard to do that because it's so difficult to manage it, and it fluctuates all the time. But I just find that I keep discovering stories, or I keep there's something in me that responds to ideas for stories and new projects, and I find that I love it. And I didn't always love it, I think, or I've learned to love it. And I think that I used to be very tense, very stressed, trying too hard, very worried. Confidence was a big issue for me many years, and at times it still is. But I'm much more at peace with myself than I used to be, and I sort of give myself permission. And I remember it was all like I went to this this theatre thing called the Next Stage that Dublin Theatre Festival
I
runs.
did that.
Yeah, when did you do it? I did 2008. I did it.
I did it in 2011. I hated it.
Well, one of the well, one of the moments that stood out for me was Alwyn Furey came in to talk to us, and she talked about fear, and she said fear is an ally, fear is poetry, and that kind of I just love the idea that one can think of fear in a positive way, much as I love the idea that one can think of failure in a positive way. And I like thinking of ways that kind of trick me into persevering. For some reason, I'm reminded of a story of my brother's stag in Madrid, and we went to a very touristy part, and the lad said, let's find the restaurant. Let's pick out the restaurant where we're most likely to be ripped off and exploited to the nth degree. Because I remember what was wonderful about that logic was I was wandering around with this kind of this tightness, this tension that I was going to be ripped off, and the lads just said, let's embrace this, let's and took away the fear of it. So
I also think, I don't know whether you feel this, and even in my darkest moments, I kind of feel I want to see what happens. You know, I know, like, I just want to see what happens. You know, where does independent living, the concept, where does it go? Should there be a traveler, I don't know, play on Broadway? You know, I and also, I kind of, I want to watch from the sidelines and just see what happened, how Ireland as a country, how we evolve, and also in terms of, you know, at the moment I'm working on a piece about transgender, and just how the human condition evolves, how gender evolves, where impairment fits into all that, and also I suppose when I'm still breathing, I want to have one more go at love, and even to say that probably indicates that there's still something good about hanging around.
Do you know what your I've just a message from Raymond. I say if you had one more question, that would be okay. Maybe we'll finish with one more question. Rosaleen, what will your next theatre production be? I hope that's not a bad question to finish with, but I'm so curious because I'm dying to see whatever comes next for you. And before you answer that, I just want to say I read Unsettled, your book, over the weekend, and oh my God, it's just beautiful. It's so brilliant and so painful and so full of pain and so full of beauty. It's an extraordinary piece. So I don't think you'd feel any anxiety about your place. You know, you more than deserve a place at the top table, artistically, that's for sure. But just what's your next piece going to be? Your next production? Do you know, or will it be a piece of prose, or what can we look forward to?
I tend not to. I would never ask you that question because I feel it. First of all, I feel it can knock your confidence, and also it can jinx whatever it is you're doing.
Okay.
If I'm not being rude, I say at the moment, this is a kind of a restorative period, a period of reflection, a period of readiness, and a period of gratitude around what I have and what I've achieved, and that people like my work. And just, I suppose, as disabled people, or indeed as travelers, we're never allowed to say, I'm tired. This big sort of facade that we're all up full of enthusiasm and extinguishing, and I've told you, I'm really tired, and if I see this year out, and maybe January will bring whatever it brings.
Fair enough. Well, there's a lot of people rooting for you, Rosaleen. There's a lot of people that just think you're amazing and love you like mad. And I'm one of them. And I think everyone here on this call is also among that group. So you just mind yourself, just mind yourself. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon, And
hello, Mary Duffy, and Amy, and there's a few more people. Yeah, we call it a day, women, Christian.
Sorry, Rosaleen?
We call it a day.
Yeah, I think so. We've got on to it's 8:20, so we've done pretty well. But a real pleasure to talk to you. I have to say, Rosaleen, real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks, Rosaleen. That was genuinely amazing. It was just beautiful to have two artistic souls so comfortable and at ease with each other. And it was such a pleasure to listen into it. And both of you talking about doubt and fear, but how you've overcome all that to create such wonderful pieces of work. And I know anyone that's been listening in will really enjoy it. So obviously, thank you so much, Dr. Rosaleen McDonagh, for giving us your time and your insight. I'm always worried if I don't give people the title, virtually or otherwise, give me a clip around the ear, So thanks, Rosaleen. Thank you, Rosaleen. Thank you, Christian. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
and wonderful to have both of you in virtual presence tonight. And I want to thank Nina again, as always. This is Nina's brainchild as a way of celebrating 30 years of independent living in Ireland and celebrating capturing so many different ways. And the idea of smashing it is disabled people who are tearing up the script in the 21st century. So this has been part 2 of that. We're delighted to have part 3 next Monday. Am I right, Nina? Yes, 7 p.m. Okay, and we can announce it. So it's Sam Renke who's going to be in conversation with Paula Sorahan. This is all leading up to events online and then an in-person and online launch of ILMI's book, Conversations about Activism and Change, which is capturing some of the narratives of disability rights over the last 30 years. And this is the best thing I get to say. And it'll be available in all good bookshops through Martello Press. And it'll be there for a stock and fill, or for anyone who's really interested in capturing some of the narratives around disability rights and equality in Ireland. But thank you so much, Christian. Thank you so much, Rosaleen. Thanks for everyone who attended. And hopefully we'll see many of you next Monday night at 7 p.m. Have a lovely evening. Take care.